Wow, I look blue. Oh, there we go. I look bluish. As you can see, I have a whiteboard today. Let's see before we can get started here. Let me just situate that in there. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe. Thank you. It is Friday, May 1st. It's May Day today, and it was May Day somewhere else yesterday. So it is, let's see, I'm a little late tonight. It must be over past 6 o'clock. Come on. 6:31 p.m. April, May 1st, 2020, 6:31 p.m. The question is, will I pass the test? More on that later. So as you know, I got tested for COVID today, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So here's the update with what's going on around the world. Still over 3 million and going up, and over 200,000 have perished. May they rest in peace. What's going on around the world? So China. So same. Oh, I guess news regarding China is that I think who was it? What country? Oh, I think. Oh, so there's an incident where there's a Filipino OFW, which is overseas Filipino worker, who was disparaging the current administration of President Rodrigo Rua Duterte, and I think he was they were the Philippine government requested that the person be deported for cyber libel, but unfortunately, the Philippine government had also mentioned that Taiwan is part of China. I think there was an interaction where it had mentioned something to that effect. Did not acknowledge that Taiwan may be it's independent from China. So I think it hurt Taiwan authorities and said, no, we're not going to deport your person that you're interested in. And I guess the Philippines just kind of said, okay, and then things as far as Australia and the China relations. I think there's a little bit of kind of like a what's the word? Not confusion. Well, I guess there was a billionaire who was actually, I think, doing a press conference, and the Australian Health Ministry was there, and I think the billionaire just sort of like had a one of those surprise guests, and that surprise guest was, I think, was the Chinese ambassador to Australia, which I think the health minister did not really expect. So that kind of I think caused a little bit of an issue there. Worldwide, I think it's still about the same. As if you notice, I haven't really delved too much into a lot of that because I think a lot of it is just repackaging old news, and I think people are throwing stuff in there, and I don't really want to contribute to this mess. I say these hopefully just as an interest from my perspective, and sharing with you what I thought was maybe you know it's not even, I'm not even out here to bring the truth or fake news. It's more of, it is what it is. It's what I read, and so do what you want with the information. I'm not here to convince anyone. That's just I'm just trying to see it from my perspective. As we all know, well, probably actually that's not a true statement. And is oh, there goes my internet slowing down. And that has always amused me for many decades. So I think I've finally been able to throw that somewhere. So as far as the United States go, New York, like I said, I haven't really been hearing much about that. The stock market has gone down again, and I guess that's to be expected. Elon Musk, there was an article today that he had tweeted, which I guess is a prolific Twitter, and that he is selling all of his material, most of his material belongings. I guess he has 3 homes that are worth over 100 million, and is probably going to cash in. I don't think this guy is turning Buddhist. Hello, Miss Cello Alta. Good morning, ma'am. How are you? Great to have you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And yeah, thank you for joining. You're awesome. I love your channel. I just looked in there again, and you still have 4 videos. Can't wait for the next one. You know me. I'm just like, can't wait to see the next one. I can't wait to try your recipes. They look awesome. Your videos look awesome. And I'm sure you're one awesome individual. So thank you very much. So going back to Elon Musk, I don't think he's going to be like the next Buddha. I don't think he's like getting rid of all of his earthly belongings to go to a cave somewhere and look at the wall for 20 years. I think this guy senses that the economy is going to tank. And, I think the GDP shrank by 4.8%, as reported this week regarding the first quarter. And that I think the demand for Tesla may have gone down. Who will be able to afford Teslas in the near future? And it makes me wonder. And I think partly while the going is good, I think while the prices of, he cashed out. And under the guise of, oh, hey, I'm going to be this person that is, that is just, that just doesn't need this stuff. So like I said, is he going to go climb a cave and up the Himalayas and look at a wall for the next 20 years? I doubt it. I think that this guy's going to do is maybe pause a little bit. I think he's going to wait and see what the next few quarters are going to be in the economy. And I am suspecting that with the meat processing problem, I think with the economy is gonna tank. He decided, he's cashing in. And I think when the market crashes even further, and I think we're going to lose much more in the GDP. And like I said before, the IMF had mentioned that we're going to lose 3% in the world economy. And that's their prediction for this pandemic, this crisis. And that's worldwide. And the person who mentioned that, I think it's the whatever it's a high level executive who mentioned that it may not seem like it's a lot, but that it's thank you for the thumbs up, ma'am. You're awesome. Just chill out. So so the thing is that if it shrinks by 3%, it may not seem like much, but you got to consider that the last time we had the Great Recession in 2008, the world economy only dipped by 0.1%. So kind of let that sink in for a little bit. So if they're predicting it's going to dip by 3%, and in 2008 when the Great Recession came, it dipped by 0.1%. So to me, 0.1% versus 3%, that's like 1/30th of what happened in 2008. So that would be very disastrous, I think. And so I think when you own a company, a multi-billion-dollar company that's actually based on attracting rich people, the affluent, then you think a lot of their, they're probably, a lot of these companies are going to go under, and those people that were employed by these companies are actually going to have, you know, the unemployment rate I think has been like 36 million. I think the unemployment rate as of this week, although it's gone down from the week previous from its peak loss, it's now 36 million, which is now greater than the Great Recession. And I think they're saying that it's pretty close, if not worse than the Great Depression. So hang on to your money, I think, and I think that that's something that to consider. So I think Elon Musk is like I said, and this is like I guess the third or fourth time I'm saying it. I don't think he's doing it for the reasons that I think people are thinking he's doing. I think he's doing it because he's gonna cash in. He's gonna cash in, get his wad of cash. He's gonna sit on it, and then the market is gonna tank. You know, look at all the different sectors. The airline sector is going down. The transportation sector is going down. Shipping's going down. Oil has gone down. The price of pork is gonna go. Yeah, it can go down and then probably up. They're gonna call a lot of chicken, meat, and the I think this isn't just this. There's it was the perfect storm, but I think there's another storm brewing behind this COVID pandemic, and I think it's more of the change in the weather pattern. I'm not saying global warming, global cooling, whatever, but I just think it's one of those, some things that you just don't need. You know what I mean? It's sometimes it's kind of like you go out and it's raining and you forget your umbrella, and then some idiot splashes you with water as he drives past you. So even though it's raining, you don't need that extra splash of water to really ruin your day. So I think that's what may happen. So yeah, I don't know. Why did I spend so much time on Elon Musk? I think that guy is a very shifty guy. So I think he is he's a great manipulator, and I think he manipulates by doing wacky things like smoking pot and saying all kinds of crazy shit, and who knows? He's probably high on pot, saying that he doesn't want to. He wants to sell most of his material things. So we'll see. So that's Elon Musk, and then so that's the nation. Um, let's see. There are states that are actually protesting with armed, protesters with their submachine guns storming the Capitol, like in Michigan. They want their state to open. A lot of people want to open up the economy. I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think there have been so much. I think there's an imbalance. I think we had a great movement that actually allowed people to stay in place and social isolation. And I think those that actually are getting antsy after 6 to 8 weeks of this are the minority. I think they're about 20%, but I think that minority can cause 80% of the problems. And I think part of that is actually causing more infection, and I think it's going to ravage the economy even more. This is just my am I here to scare anyone? Predictive. These are just my feelings. It's Friday, and I just want to share them with you. And and I think even Orange County beaches, even though the governor of California is saying no, he's going to close them down. A lot of people, a lot of businesses are, and even the city attorneys are going to sue the state of California because they say it's unconstitutional to close the beaches because you know I don't know who this guy was, but they interviewed somebody. He says, this is something we need. It's infringing on our rights. This is one person. Then another person said, oh yeah, this is the best place to go. You've been cooped up for so long. You need to stretch. You need some fresh air, and this is healing, and this is absolutely. And I'm thinking, whoa, okay. So beaches are going to start opening. Hairdressers are beginning to defy. and I've heard in the news that there was a hairdresser who dared to be arrested, and so she wasn't arrested. So I think she set a precedent. Oops, and now, sorry about that. And there's more to follow. And you're probably wondering why I have this. I'm gonna draw something later, and I'll share that with you. Hopefully, you can enlighten me, or I can enlighten you, or maybe we can both learn something together. So, but going back to California, that's kind of what's going on. So we actually, where I work, we were visited by the number two guy. No, is he number two? Yeah, he's number two guy from the medical side. And he was very. We had a meeting, and there were about 139 participants. He was in one room, social distancing, and everyone that joined were in their offices or their cubicle, and they joined in. 139 people, and it seemed to have worked really well. I mean, he was talking, people mute their phones, and then when you could actually type in your question, and then if you needed to contribute something, you unmute, and then you get a chance to speak. So that's kind of what happened. And I threw a couple of questions in there, and it was regarding thermometers. So where I work, they bought 25 surface thermometers. They were basically, they're scanned, the thermometers. So you actually put it within 2 inches of someone's forehead. You take the temperature, and it should read the correct temperature. Well, these are surface scanners, and they actually are not the most accurate thing. There's at least 2 degrees Fahrenheit margin of error, so plus or minus. So I kind of mentioned, hey, I said, can you return these things? They're not accurate. Maybe you get, for the price of 25 of these, you can get 2 thermal scanners, which actually checks your core. And he said, he threw that. He says, why don't you go ask your manager? So he was nice about it. He's a typical diplomatic executive leadership team member. So then the other thing that I mentioned is that I said, um, you know, um, can we refuse treatment because we provide care, right, for patients? I said, if somebody refuses to be screened, can we? What I said, can you provide some guidance? If somebody refuses the screening questions, the mask, and then swabbing, since we were swabbing, and I'll get to that in a little bit about what happened to me. So I said, if they refuse to do any of that, I said, what? We need your guidance. And so he says, you know what? He says, if they refuse to answer the screening questions and the mask, unless it's emergency, and this is our clinic, right? Unless it's an emergency, you can refuse them entry into the building, which I thought was good. So, and I think there were people who actually IM'd me off to the side and kind of gave that, they gave that opinion. And he says that we're there to protect the health of the majority. And if this one person does not want to cooperate, if it's not an emergency, see you later, buddy. So as far as mandatory swabbing, he says it hasn't come to that yet. So I guess they may have the right to refuse. So what a segue. I'm going to segue into my swabbing. So I got swabbed today. I and 3 other co-workers, we signed up yesterday. We went to the LA COVID-19 website. We signed up, went there at around 12 o'clock. It was a very smooth process. It's awesome. What you do is you sign up, and then you watch a video, and it's on YouTube, and it's about a 5 to 10 minute video. It tells you what to do. So this is their process in LA County. So which is, we watched it, and that's kind of what we did. So the reason why I got tested and kind of encouraged these other 3 is because we had a staff member test positive, and I mentioned it the last couple of days that we're talking, and I said, hey, maybe we should get tested. And so she got tested, and then she's positive. Then they had to test like 30 other people, but they wouldn't test us because she was in another section of the building. She was in another team. So we decided to go there. Actually they'll take. So there were four of us. We were in a van, and so and I guess we were distanced enough because they said it was okay for the four of us to go in a van. So we go to this place called Hanson Dam, and they have pylons, and you got people directing. It was kind of warm. Must have been like 84 degrees. So there's already a line, and actually when we signed up, it'll tell you how many they're taking every hour. So when I signed up for an appointment, it was for 12 o'clock, and there were like 139 spots open still. So I took one, told the other three, and we were able to get our spots. So what you do is you actually you go to this place. There's signage. There are people directing. And I said, "Why don't you ask this guy?" Because I wasn't driving. It was one of the other persons who was with me. And yeah, he says, yeah, he just kind of, it's kind of he confirmed that this is where we get tested for COVID. So we inched along. It's in a dam, Hanson Dam, if you're familiar. That's the same area where O.J. Simpson plays golf. So that Hanson Dam is a recreational area, and next to it is the Hanson Dam golf course. That's where he used to play golf. So I don't know if you know who O.J. Simpson is. Maybe you can Google. He's not a very likable guy for some, but some see him as a hero. He was a football hero. So anyway, so we inch along, and then we get to the first stop. And so so we get an officer who says, "Do you have your confirmation number, your ID, blah blah blah?" And yes, we do. And then so they all right. So you're basically just barely in the recreational area, right? So then he says, "Okay, go that way." So we inch along, and there must have been like about, I'd say, a good 50 to 75 cars that were in front of us, because there were two lines. There was lines that were getting ready to do it, and there were lines that were just gonna get sort of like a second check. So there are two lines actually to where you do the process. So we were inching along, and so it's kind of like you go to a line, and then there's a guy there, and then it'll say, go ahead, a couple more, go to this line and go to that line. So we waited, we inched along, and we stopped, and then we were waved to go to our turn. So we went to the left side. And what they do is, so you go to another stop, and then there's a table. There's a couple of individuals who are sitting. One is on a computer. The other one is writing, your name, your ID identification for the little kit that you're gonna receive. And so there's a person who's fully gowned with a mask, and she's asking questions, saying, right. Oh no! Before they did that, they said on your confirmation letter or that you printed out, put your last four of that the ID that they gave you and your last name, and then you're supposed to press that against the window of your car, and then they'll look at it. So if your name is John Doe 1234 was in your paper, so the girl with the or the person with the full PPE will read that, and it'll say 123 Doe. What's your name, Doe? First name, Doe? John. So then the guy says, "Okay, John Doe 1234." So the guy that's in the computer says that to the guy that writes all your information in a plastic bag. So then that's handed off to the person with the full PPE and hands it to you. Hands each one their own packet. And I thought this is an excellent production line process. It's awesome. So then they said, "Well, did you watch the video? Do you have any questions?" No. Okay. So then you inch along forward. So as you inch along, so what we didn't know that we were supposed to go ahead and do it. So we were inching along until we got to the final part where they collect the specimen. So we didn't do it yet. So we asked and we said, "Should we go ahead and do it?" So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to, by the way, not eat or drink for about 20, 30 minutes before you do the test. So once you're at that last station, you're supposed to cough about 5 times really deep. That was the pretend cough. So you're supposed to cough, and we had our mask on, so we were coughing into our mask. So and then what you're supposed to do is you go into that plastic bag which has the test kit, and it's got a swab that's already shortened. Back before that, they were supposed to cut it. Vincere Otomori. U.S. COVID numbers as of today: total tested 6,322,198. Of that, positive 1,068,892. Negative 5,253,306. That's 57,509. COVID death rate around 0.9%. Or is that 0.9? Okay. All right. Thank you, Vincere. I'm hoping you're gentlemen. Thank you, sir, for your input. That's awesome. So we're right there at the list station. So we're coughing, and so the process is you get this swab, you take it out, and then you're supposed to do it at the roof of your mouth. You swirl it around for about 10 seconds to the left side of your mouth, 10 seconds, right side of your mouth, 10 seconds. You open a vial while you're holding this, and then you drop it in there, you close it, and you agitate it, you shake it. So you shake it, and then you put it back in, you put everything else in there. It's a zip, you get rid of the air, you ziplock it, and then this person who has the full PPE will actually, they have those things that it's for people that are handicapped. They have these things there. It must have been like 4 feet long, right? So it's got a little clamp. It's for those for picking things up. So basically, she actually, she took one at a time. Yeah, so this is the envelope. So she does this. She clamps it and then puts it in the big blue. Kind of like if you ever watch Breaking Bad, those I think they're like what are they? The HDPE plastics, where they were mixing the chemicals. So yeah, they're the big blue plastic barrels. So they dump them in there, and then when you're done, you're gone. But before you leave, they say it'll take about 5 to 8 days before we get the results. So that's kind of my testing, but that's not the reason why I have a title, Will I Pass the Test? The question that I had actually that's been in the news has nothing to do, will I pass the test? Whether I'm positive or negative, I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But the thing that I'm actually wondering is and this is why I asked the question, if I'm going to present something real quick. This is why I have the whiteboard. I'm going to use my dry erase. And there's a question that I don't get, and so this is probably where I'll plump if I had to take a board regarding the COVID. So they mentioned that those people tested in South Korea, the retested, I should say. So I'll give you a scenario. So they're saying that in Korea, people tested positive who may have been symptomatic or asymptomatic. They got retested again. They were negative, and then they were tested again, and they were positive. And they were thinking that they tested positive again because it was reactivated, not reinfected, is what they said. So recently, and I think it was today or yesterday, they said that no, it did not reactivate, it did not reinfect, but it was picking up dead RNA from the virus. So my question for everyone who can help out is, and this is probably where I flunked the test. So my thinking is, all right, so you tested positive, you were sick, and then you tested negative, supposedly you recovered. You tested negative, right? So you were positive, you tested positive, and then you got tested, you were negative because you were better. but now they retest you, you're positive again, and they're saying no, that's dead virus. Wait a minute, why didn't you detect dead virus? Uh, oh no, it's a Mr. Vincere Otomori writes, were you tested with the RT-PCR or an antibody test? It's not the antibody, so I am thinking it's the PCR. I'm not exactly sure what the LA County does, because at the facility where I work, actually, we are now using PCR when we were actually using the biofire before. Actually, before we were doing this crazy shit where you actually had two nasopharynx, two oropharynx, one actually, so one went to, get tested in our laboratory, and they used the biofire, and it was a process of elimination. The biofire does not specifically check for um, the COVID because it's new, but their rationale was if you're symptomatic and everything else is negative, then therefore you might have COVID. And so what they would do is they would send that to CDC. But the crazy shit about it is that we had a patient who actually was tested negative by our facility. And I don't think it was the biofire. I think this is after the biofire when we got our new machine that checks for COVID. And our turnaround time actually at my facility is about uh, 24 hours. So, but this is early on. This is like a couple of weeks ago. So we had a case where I think there were a couple of cases where it was positive. I mean, it was negative from our facility. It got sent out because there was a high index of suspicion for COVID. And lo and behold, I think the CDC tested it. It was positive. My facility retested again, and it's negative again. So crazy shit, right? So I think now the question might be, well, since you guys are doing a lot of tests, then you must have a lot of negatives and must not have any positives. Well, we actually do. So he must have been. So the question was, it might have been a false negative, right? So we're getting negatives. We're getting who are positive. So just going to that a little bit right now. The actually our facility, you only have 62 patients with COVID. Um, One is on mechanical ventilator in the ICU, and I think the others. I think there were 14 in the ICU, and the rest were not on ventilators, and they're doing fine. So that's kind of what we're having right now. So it's not, we don't really have a lot, which is good. And I'm hearing, like I mentioned yesterday, where my sister works days ago, and their census is going down. So hopefully we're doing something with this. So that was kind of like the question that's the reason why I titled it "Will I pass the test?" So it just kind of like just really kind of weird that you would be infected and test positive, and then you have a break where it's negative, and then you go positive again. If N95 mask effectively block 95% particles down to zero point 0.3 microns, and the COVID-19 virus is 0.125 microns in size, are masks really effective? I think from your question, rely on masks. So we rely on hand washing and social distancing, which I think adds another layer of protection, right? So I think it would be great. I think the thing that that would be effective, that would be 100%, is we walked around in a bubble, right? That'd be great, right? But unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to do that in a hospital setting, or maybe practical, because I think if we were to block 100%, then it'd have to be solid, and we'd have to be encased in a suit, sort of like a space suit. But yeah, I think standing at least 6 feet away. I think, and I think that's the reason why this shit's lasted so long. I think this is something that if it was airborne, or if it was If it was droplet alone, I think this shit would have been over and done with. But the problem is, it's just, yeah, partly I think one hand says it's airborne, one hand says it's aerosol. And we were being fed that, this, I don't know, bipolarity of, they couldn't decide. And there's a lot of, it's just really, it's so early. And I kind of had a couple of discussion with a couple of PhD doctors about all of these things. They found out we were tested today, and they're both women, and they said, "Oh well, we don't want to get tested. We don't want to find out. We just don't want to get tested just to get tested." And so, how come? And they said, "Well, this is not going to do any good." They said you could be negative today, and you can catch it tomorrow. I said, "Well, my thing is that if you're negative now, then you continue doing what you're doing. Then you must be doing something right, right? So if you're negative and all you did, you went to work, and your behavior was really, helped." Prevent you from getting the COVID. And then when you're at home, you did whatever so that you didn't get the COVID. And this shit's been going on for like that, maybe so far about 8 weeks in the United States, let's say, okay? Then you're doing something right. Then you continue doing what you're doing. But if you're positive and you don't live by yourself, don't you think that maybe you should like, whoa, shit, maybe I did something that broke the the my maybe I did something where I caught it somewhere, right? So maybe my thing would be, if I have kids, I'd say, oh shit, maybe I need to go ahead and stay in the garage if I haven't done so, right? Kind of to protect everybody else, and maybe your spouse. So that's kind of where I think, if you test positive or not. I think, is it true that, yeah, if you test positive today, and then you'll get and then can you get it tomorrow? Yeah, but that would be like, okay, I test negative today, but so I'm just gonna go ahead to the grocery store and do this, do that, and since I'm negative, right? All right. Okay, the Medline Biomask Antiviral Isolation Face Mask BIOM 201 AZ would afford some protection, but hand washing gloves and eye protection should also be used for first line health workers. Yay! Thank you, sir. It is. It is. Yes, I agree with you totally. The other thing that I might add to what you said is hair protection. You ever see these women? They got nice long blonde flowing hair. They're like Goldilocks and shit. They got their face mask and their face shield. They got their N95, but shit, they got their hair going, and actually they got their necks exposed, right? So all you need, it just doesn't, like, you don't get a big honker that goes wham. No, you don't. This shit just goes all over the place. And guess what? Hair. And you know what? I know some women who don't wash their hair every day. So if you're offended by that, ladies, I apologize. I'm not trying to offend you. I just know people that don't wash their hair every day. Sometimes they don't even wash their hair for a week. And I don't know how they can stand that shit. But then they do this and then they do this. You know what? And I wonder if some of those frontline workers actually suffered that fate. And you know what? I made some head covers for my coworkers, and I tell them, get a balaclava and just cover your neck, because you do this and then you do that, and boom. So I hope I'm wrong, but I totally agree with you, sir, that you need all of these things. I wish we had all of these. The Medline biomask. It would be great if we had 1 billion of those, and I think we would have fewer fatalities among healthcare workers. I agree with you. Thank you for bringing that up. So this is the question that I had, right? So that kind of that was one thing that I probably would get wrong if I had a test. But if you were to look at, so what I want to do right now is I actually have a couple of questions. I hope, you can answer this, and if there's any experts out there. So if you watch Duck Vong's video, I think his first name is spelled D-U-C, and his last name is V as in Victor U-O-N-G, and he's actually a surgeon from Texas. You should check out his videos. This guy's friggin' hilarious, but you know what? He dumbed it down so much that even I understood it. so that's what I'm going to, because there are a couple of questions that I think, sorry about that. This is an old whiteboard. So there's a couple of things that I think that may be issues that could be addressed, because they're saying, if you look at hydrochloroquine, they're talking about changing the, is that, can you see that? Oh, crap. That's not going to work. I can see it. So, hold on, let me just turn the light on. Sorry about this. Poor planning. I thought I had it. It was all up here. I thought, oh, what a brilliant idea. I guess it doesn't show up. So maybe if I use black. Oh, there's no ink. I can just. What happens is, somebody coughs, sneezes, yawns, or tells a story, and then you happen to be walking there, and so they're saying it can live up to 3 hours in the air. It can live, given the right temperature at 25 degrees centigrade. I don't know what the hell that is in Fahrenheit, but they're a certain amount of time, and on on metal surfaces, a certain amount of time. And then if you kick it up a notch, if you raise the temperature to 56 degrees centigrade, which I think is about 100, I Googled this, so it's about 136 degrees, then it'll be alive for about 30 minutes, right? So crazy shit, right? So you're out in the desert, it's 138 degrees behind them within 30 minutes, and it's airborne, and you don't have a mask, he doesn't have a mask, and shit, you're out of luck. And that's how freaking hot it is. So that's scary shit, right? So the question is, so let's say you were out in there in the desert and some mofo did that, sneezed, you walk past and you didn't even know that guy sneezed because he's already out, 30 minutes, he's long gone. So, you breathe that air, you get one virus, goes in your nose, goes in the back of your throat. Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir. 25 degrees Celsius is 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Thank you. I appreciate that. So anyway, so you breathe that, you get one virus. All you need is freaking one. And so what happens is that starts to replicate, right? So then, you think about it. Well, you sneeze, you cough, but before you've done that, that one virus probably has replicated, right? But for some, maybe that's the reason why they don't get sick, is they sneeze it out and they're able to cough up a big loogie, right? So, but for some who get sick, that thing is going to multiply, and then some of that you'll cough, you'll sneeze, or even swallow. But you know what? It's kind of like a million tennis balls, and you're trying to catch all of them, right? You might miss one, and and that shit, if it goes into your lungs, so what happens? It'll travel into your lungs, and then because corona, they call it a coronavirus because if you look at it in an electron microscope, they have these little spikes, which is what they call keys, right? They're like KEYS, like a key to your lock. So when this shit happens, that thing just kind of lands, and then it finds it tries to, it's not just going to be one, I'm sure. Because, imagine a whole bunch of this shit just floating in there, and boom, one might get rejected for whatever reason. Maybe just, you breathe in and then you breathe it back out. So this, the coronavirus has these spikes that look like, they call it, corona is a crown, right? So the one of the spikes will actually latch on to a sort of like the lock, a receptor in in the lung, which is lined by ACE2 receptors, right? So it's in the pneumocyte, the lung cell. So it just so happens that that virus has the right key to go into to that cell, and when it goes into that cell, it goes through the cell membrane, and then it starts replicating. And as the cell, what it does, it causes it causes it starts to divide, and then it actually I'm trying to remember, this is probably where I'm going to skip a couple of things here, so I apologize. So it hits it goes into the cell, and it actually it then starts to multiply, and then it actually leaves the cells, the ones that have multiplied, they just now blossom, and so then it starts attacking cells. So then the new cells that start, so it'll enter a cell that may be dividing. So now it's got I'm lost for the terminology here. So basically, it's inside the cell, and now it's multiplying. So that when the cell multiplies, now you have some of this RNA from this virus, and then some of this RNA from this virus, and a lot of that stuff starts happening. And then what happens is you start, I think this is when you start having tumor necrosis factor alpha, your interleukin 1 and interleukin 6. Then it's an inflammatory response. And I think this is when the cytokine storm starts happening. And then what happens when that happens at the cellular level, and this is the crazy shit about it, right? So, in most pneumonias, you get a lobar pneumonia because, depending on who you talk to, if you talk to a respiratory therapist, they might tell you we got 6 lobes in the lung, in our lungs. Our lungs comprise of 6 lobes. The left upper, the right upper, the right middle, and the right lower, the left upper, and then the left lower. But what's number 6? Some will say the lingula will be the left middle lung. That purists will say, bullshit. That's like there's only 4 lobes. Anyway, whichever party you're at, no big deal. So what happens is that so now in most pneumonias you get one of those. You might get an upper lobe pneumonia or left lower lobe pneumonia because that's where the bifurcation. That's where your air pipe kind of splits into a Y. So and then it splits into 3 on the right and 2 on the left. I think there's 3 on the right as well. 3 on the right and the left. So that's why people will say that there's 6 lobes. So usually pneumonia is either going to be on one of those lobes, either up here or down here. But the crazy shit with on some of the COVID cases is that you get it in one place, and then that shit just goes all over your lungs. It's just like pus in your lungs, or it's just fluid in your lungs that's infectious. And that's where you're like drowning from the inside and you can't breathe jack shit, right? So this is kind of like why I wanted to do this friggin' thing, but it's not showing up. But let's just maybe tilt it a little bit. Yeah. So anyway, so acid base. This is and why am I doing this? Maybe it's just I'm asking help from the audience if you can maybe help me solve this problem. So we're supposed to have a normal pH of 7.0, the PaCO2, which is partial pressure of oxygen in the artery, and that's supposed to be about 80 to 100, but we'll just call it 100. PaCO2 is supposed to be 40. All right, so that's what it's supposed to be if you're normal. Now you remember they're saying that in that cell, you can actually see a little bit. Nice. So in the cell, right, you have this. Remember I told you that there's that, the virus is here and it actually has its key. You got a whole bunch of spikes here anyway. So it allows this is a protein channel. And then you actually have a layer here. So these are lipids or fat layers, right? So then this is the nucleus, right? And then you have the Golgi body here. You have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and then you have the rough endoplasmic reticulum, right? Then you have your chromatid, and then your nucleolus. Is that right? So they're saying that shit. What if we change? So this is where they're thinking hydrochloroquine was actually working. You change the pH here, then you kill this shit right here, right? So they're also saying that there's a lot of ways that you can, coronavirus is pretty easy to kill, right? Clorox, alcohol, all that other shit, right? Clorox is an alkali, so basically it has an IPH, right? So this is my question. I'm going to ask you this a little bit. I just want you to follow my train of thought. This is probably where I'm going to goof up, but so far I don't think I have. But maybe I have. Just let me know. Please comment, and I'd really love to know. So now you got this virus that's at the cellular level. So if you can affect the pH, right? All right, that's the hydrochloroquine. Because basically, when you weaken this one here, you basically weaken the cell wall. Then the shit can't do its work, and if that's why when you spray Clorox, it dies, right? Ammonia, which is I think also a base, it's not an acid. That's why I think vinegar isn't really as effective, right? You have to use ethyl alcohol at least 70%, isopropyl alcohol at least 70%. So that's kind of so the thing. That's why don't drink freaking Clorox because it'll kill you. Not only will it kill anything that's here, it'll kill this shit too, which you don't want. That's your cells. You don't want your cells. You want your cells to be healthy. They're going to get screwed up by the viruses anyway. We're trying to prevent the virus and everything else from destroying the cell. So what happens is they're mentioned that it changes the pH around the surrounding area. So this actually doesn't go in and screw up the cell, right? So the hydrochloroquine. So my question is, you're thinking. So when you have somebody with pneumonia, your pH becomes acidic, right? It may go to 7.30 because your gas exchange is really poor. You can't get as much air in, and if you can't get as much air in, you can't get it just as much out as well. So your PaO2, your oxygen may dip down to like 50. This is pretty common in COPDers. You actually need at least 60 millimeters of mercury of oxygen in your bloodstream to start off with. I mean, no, at this level, at the cellular level. So if you are at 100, by the time it goes to your individual cells, you need at least 60. So when you're already deficit at 50 to 60, you become hypoxic, and then these guys, the cell dies. So then also your PaCO2, which is 40, now it's gonna start. You become hypercarbic, and your CO2 now is going to freaking 55. These are conservative numbers. These are not ARDS numbers. These are probably just moderate respiratory distress. So the thing is that medications don't work when your pH, when your blood is too acidic, right? So they a lot of these tests, they don't test them on like people that are gonna die. They're using them on, they test them on healthy college students who need money to get these medications tested to see what the freaking side effects are. I mean, it's kind of sad. I seem to be smirking, but it's just sad. I'm smirking because there were a couple of skits on Saturday Night Live about people doing shit like this. So going back, so this is normal, right? And then this is with and this is when you're sick. So if this pH, if we can alter the pH, and I think hydrochloroquine increases the pH, right? And it kills this. Now, why do I really know that that's what it does? No. But, if you have an alkaline solution like Clorox and ammonia, then you can, and then it kills COVID, then you can infer that, chlorine is alkaline or base, right? And then ammonia is alkaline. ammonia and Clorox kills COVID. Therefore, alkaline solutions kill COVID, right? So I hope you guys follow me still there. But that's not what's going on. That's why we end up, when we do blood gases and shit like that, the COVID is still alive, but it's living on the cell. It doesn't want to kill you, but it ends up killing you. So you have a 7.30. My question is, does the COVID thrive in an acidic environment? Does it love an acidic environment? So it's kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So did the when the COVID entered, you have a normal pH, and now that it's multiplied, your pH has likely gone lower, which is now acidic, and it continues to get worse. Did it get worse because of the COVID being there and just kind of like causing all of this pneumonia? Or is the pneumonia or is the low pH PCO2 pH what the COVID likes, right? Because like I said, if high pH kills the COVID, then you'd think maybe it loves an acidic environment. So this is where the question is. Well, that's part of the question. So the other thing is that what if, or can we? And I don't have any, I haven't worked ICU in a while. Maybe they're ICU experts or they're pulmonologists and stuff. What if, and we've done this before, what if we actually, those on ventilators, not get blood gases where they're normal, right? Because pH, this guy can still live, the coronavirus. What if we hyperventilated these patients? All right, so what does hyperventilation do, right? So you blow out a lot of carbon dioxide and you breathe in a lot of oxygen, right? So when your lungs are full of a fluid, you just don't have a good gas exchange. So, but you're not able to get as much oxygen in, but you can sure as hell breathe out a lot of carbon dioxide. So how do you do that, right? So part of this equation, actually, in your blood gas, you have a HCO3, which is your bicarbonate. But actually, when we breathe out, we actually breathe out carbonic acid, which is H2CO3, right? So when we breathe out, actually, we breathe out water vapor, which is H2O plus CO2. So if you look how many H's there are 2. There's one oxygen from here, there's one carbon oxygen here, and then there's 2 that are left oxygen. So that's how when we breathe out water vapor and carbon dioxide. That's why if it's airborne, if it's droplet, if somebody has COVID and they breathe, cough, or sneeze, it rides on those water vapors, right? So that becomes droplet. So sometimes sometimes it's a big old loogie or stuff like that. But for the most part, it's water vapor. So haven't gone to the pH yet. So if you hyperventilate someone by letting them breathe really fast, and you do that mechanically, what you do is you knock them out. You use Pavilon, succinylcholine, you use midazolam or fentanyl, or maybe even propofol to really knock them out so that they don't have to work, because you actually don't really want them to work really hard, but you just control their ventilation. And so you hyperventilate them, you breathe them at a fast rate, like maybe 30 or 40, which I was told that some of them are actually breathed at a rate of 40 anyway with low tidal volume. So you put them at that rate, and when that happens, you can actually cause this pH to go up and become alkalonic. So now this oxygen, we're not going to go there because it doesn't affect your acid-base balance, but your CO2 does. So if you have a patient be dependent on a ventilator, control his breathing, have him breathe at about 40, 50 times, he's going to breathe out a lot of water and carbon dioxide. So when that carbon dioxide falls, it goes to 30, it goes to the opposite. So this may actually go 7.5. So my question is, and this is where I'm wondering, Will I pass the test if they gave me a test? So I don't know the answer. Maybe you guys do. Would hyperventilating make the patients better? So why did I even go through all that, right? Maybe you followed me already. So you went from an acidic state when they're very sick. You hyperventilate them, your pH ends up going from 7.3 to 7.5. Your CO2 goes from a high of 50 down to 30. They're gonna be hyperkalemic. I mean, hello, they're gonna be duh, the wrong term. Sorry about that. It'd be alkalotic, right? This is so the blood becomes acidic when it's 7.3, and then if you go over 7.4, because 7.4 is isotonic, right? So you hyperventilate and they become alkalotic. Now, what did we say about alkaline? Whoa, pH is alkaline, right? So hydrochloroquine supposedly, which was, it's got that shit's got too much problems. It causes QT prolongation, and it's not even as effective as they thought. So if patients can't sustain that high. It's a vasoconstrictor. They may end up stroking, but whatever. But if it's last resort, maybe they may work for a short term. So now, would it be if you were able to bring up the pH, and you can actually, because I've seen it, and you're able to make the blood alkaline for a short time or forever or how long? Interesting theory. Oh, thanks. Because it's so if you're able to raise that pH, right? Can I call you Vincere? Yeah. I think the working theory behind HQC is that HQC is a zinc ionophore. As an ionophore, it is lipid soluble, allowing it transport ions across a cell membrane, effectively pushing zinc in the cell, blocking the replication of the virus in the cell. Okay, great. I didn't know that part, but I know that it was actually that this is kind of like how the virus. So yeah, but I think hydrochloroquine has been really effective, right? I mean, I think they've sort of like written that off for now, and I think that's why their remdesivir is actually in favor, right? But my thinking is that, my question would have been, are we, is it because, are there things that, because, if the blood is acidic, right, then you may be just allowing it to proliferate a little bit more. So if you were to make them, because I talked to my student who actually works at the county, and she says, you know what, they're not even putting patients on respirators, and you're seeing them breathing like 40, 50 a minute, and they're not intubating, and they're doing really well. So that's kind of like where my question came in too. Those that are on ventilators that are actually really doing poorly, can we hyperventilate and then cause the blood pH to go up, and can we actually stop it right there? So let's see. It would only be effective if you give zinc along with it. Wow, that would be pretty interesting, right? But so I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's been looked into before, but that's kind of that's the thing that I mean, if we're deciding to work on pH, we certainly can hyperventilate patients, and it seems like if you're seeing patients that are breathing 40, 50, I'm sure they're just trying to play catch up, because your body, unless you have major problems, you can actually, you can't really overcompensate a lot of times. You might be able to for a short time, and then you'll pass out. so just like if you try hyperventilating right now, your pH will get thrown out, and then your brain stem is going to say, cut that shit out. It'll make you pass out, and then you'll go, and then you start breathing normal. So yeah, that's kind of my thought. That's so that's why I titled my live stream, will I pass the test if they throw me that question at some boards 10 years from now with the COVID? I don't know. I hope, yeah, that's I would like a special thank you to Mr. Vincere Tomori, and I apologize. Are you seeing ARDS in COVID patients? I actually, here's where I'm at. I'm actually doing primary care, and actually I work in a clinic. It's been a while since I since I worked critical care. I did critical care, a lot of it in the 1980s. I actually, when HIV first came out, that was scarier and shit. We are actually in the same type of like traumatic event, but this is worse. So back in the 80s, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the 80s when HIV first came out. We were doing we were like we were doing we were doing droplet precaution. We were doing contact isolation. We were doing universal precautions, and we thought it was like it's in the air, it's in their fart, it's in their blood, it's like everywhere. And it took, and I don't know if you can remember, it took months, if not years, before we came to an agreement and said, oh yeah, it's blood to blood, right? So, but if you think about it, at the rate of discovery, the things that are coming out, it's blowing away. It's very surreal that we have this crazy shit that's worse. You can't say it's worse than HIV, because HIV over these years has killed about 15 to 20 million people, and COVID has killed about what? Thank you for your numbers right here. They were up there earlier. Yeah, it was a lot, right? So it doesn't really. But you know what? It can be that many, I guess. And I think there's that imperative to really find something really fast. And I think with today's technology, I mean, they were able to do oh man, what is it? They were able to is it what is the word I'm trying to find? Gene wow. Anyway, they were able to sequence it right really fast. Of course, the ones that did were in China, and they decided to burn that shit. Anyway, I don't want to get too political. But yeah, man, I lost my train of thought. Thanks a lot, China. But yeah, so I wonder if that's going to be of any help. Oh yeah, I gained my train of thought back. So a lot of these patients are hyperventilating, and I'm wondering if that's actually part of the success with some of the patients. Oh, I know. Going back to your question, are you seeing ARDS in COVID patients? Not mine personally. I work in a clinic. Going back to what I was saying, I haven't worked ICU on respirator. I was a respiratory therapist in the 1980s. So I used to work with the neonates, the pediatrics, ICU, and both post-op ICU, the intensive care unit, and the cardiac unit, the medical side. Did that, and then I worked ER. I'm not working with patients with ARDS or COVID. Pretty much what we do where I'm at, we screen you. So this is what we do in my clinic. Is basically um, they come in, we screen them with the questions. They screen positive for the questions. Then the first level of the first tier of screening is done by either a security guard or police that's non medical. And then if it's positive, we have them put a mask on, have them not touch anything. We direct them to a single room, single person room where we isolate them basically, and then we just have them sit down. We ask more questions, and we do the secondary screening. In the past, we did a third screening by actually calling the infectious disease, but that's been relaxed now. So we have, as providers, we actually are able to order COVID screening if we felt it was warranted. So I haven't answered your question. I apologize. So then if we swab, and then that's that. If they're critical, then we call 911. If they're not critical, they get sent home. So that was kind of it. So as far as the no, I don't see patients with ARDS in COVID, but we certainly saw a lot of ARDS. Believe it or not, when they started saying ground glass appearance, I said, "Oh yeah, ARDS," and that was and I don't know if ARDS was actually coined before the 1980s, but if I could remember back in 84 or 85, that's when we were hearing a lot about ARDS. And I actually doubt that there were many, if it was even labeled as that. And I remember that it was a newly coined term in the 1980s. And I don't know what happened there. I don't think we were, there was really, I can remember that patients had ARDS, and that was that. And there was no second thought about, could this be, an unknown pneumonia. So that's kind of what's going on. Miss Chella Alta says, I always pray your safety every day, sir. Thank you for everyday update. Keep safe. Always pray for your safety. Me too. And I guess I can end it here. I think I've gone on for an hour and 11 minutes. And like I said, it's going to be a long one. And I think what's going on is working really well, and I hope you guys keep safe. One last word from Mr. Vincere Otomori. If you examine the HQC studies that are failing, you will notice that they are the ones that are not giving zinc along with the HQZ. Pretty interesting. Haven't tell you the truth, I haven't really looked much into the HQC, but now that you've pointed me in the right direction, I shall do so. It's the weekend. I actually don't have access to my resources from work, but certainly you planted a seed in my mind, and I think it's a good approach. And zinc is not really that big. It's not. There's really not a lot of. Just like whatever. There's adverse effects, right? But yeah, I think it sounds very interesting. So with that, I am very appreciative again. Thank you so much for Ms. Chella Alta, Mr. Vincere Otomori. You folks have been wonderful. I hope you guys keep safe, and good night for now. Thanks again. Have a good weekend. Bye.